builder, moonlight and boat sales, and here we are, Flood Reporter 2023. Shoot me now. Honestly, the poor M&R, I mean, guys, they drew down the lake 40 inches. They did everything in their power, yet Mother Nature wins again. So here we go. Lake Muskoka is flooded. It's just starting. We'll count this as day one. The dock I measure from is 384 inches from what I have no idea, but I know that's the number. And it is currently just pushing 2 inches underwater, so 386. That is where we are currently. In 2019, when I became the impromptu flood reporter, we hit a high. I'm going to just go back and check the numbers and I'll post them all for you, but I think it was 413. So we were definitely not 4 feet underwater, and hope to God we don't get more than 4 more inches. More soon. All right, I have the answers to your $1 million questions, which is, you know where we are. I filled you into that far. Where are we going and how fast is this going to be over? I did not sleep a lot last night, so I'm looking very tired because I went down this rabbit hole of numbers and data. But I have your answers, so here we go. The north branch of the river, so the Big East, it actually peaked a couple of days ago, and it's going down pretty quickly. It's stabilized. The other section of that is the stuff that comes into the big 4 lakes in Huntsville, then down to Mary and, through down to Bracebridge. That has stabilized, and they're expected to start dropping by tomorrow. So we got the north branch under control. The south branch, which starts up in Algonquin, T-Smoke Lake, that's the picture I just posted. Obviously there was still snow on the ground on Sunday. It got cold again, so probably that hasn't, really dissipated. The lake's up there, the ice is starting to move around, etc. Anyhow, it is starting to decline, and that will make the flow on the Oxtongue decline. Oxtongue River. The rapids are right off Highway 60. I'm sure many of you have been at Algonquin Park. They're super cool. You can literally get out of your car, walk 5 to 10 minutes. It's very easy for all ages, and see the amazing waterfall there. There is also, side note, I think it's an AO, an Algonquin Outfitter paddle shack, just shy of there. And you could either take your own canoe and, what have you. Way too complicated for me. We went to the paddle shack, rented a canoe, threw the dog. It was before Hartley was along, in the kayak, and you take dogs and kids and you paddle up to the river. It's a really nice few-hour day trip, something fun to do. Anyway, that flows into Lake of Bays, backs up into Quagma, but that comes into the south branch at right by the Inn on the Falls, which is not the Inn on the Falls, which is the Quality Inn now. In Bracebridge. So they're expecting, M&R is expecting that Lake of Bays will peak tomorrow evening. And that will therefore slow that channel down. All right, we're talking about water coming in. We also need to look at water going out. So Lake Muskoka is, in effect, the bathtub of the watershed. And there's only one way out, which is at Bala, for those dams that I showed you pictures of yesterday. And we send it into the Moon River, flood them greatly every time we do it. And then they send it along to Georgian Bay, final destination. So when Lake Muskoka floods greatly, the only other thing we do is, in effect, push it over the locks in Port Carling to Lake Rosso and, in effect, Lake Joe. So if you're on Lake Rosso and Lake Joe, you're not necessarily affected by flooding in Muskoka. I was on Lake Joe yesterday. It's quite fine. I also snapped a picture, which I'll post right now, of the locks. It's getting close, but needless to say, it'll be minimal flooding there. I'm a Lake Muskoka cottager. I have been for 46 years. That is why I became the Lake Muskoka flood reporter. And it was just to help my fellow cottagers. And that's what I'm doing now. Education is number one. So in versus out, Bala currently is discharging 330 CMS. That's cubic meters per second. In 2019, it actually got up to 450 cubic meters per second. So I spent last night trying to Google how many bathtubs was that? Cubic meters per second is just something we're not all familiar with. So I'm actually fascinated personally with exactly how much water that is. And I've asked, is that something that it's just gravity and that's just the force of which it's going through. I mean, it looked like it was pretty roaring yesterday at Bala, or is it something that they can be controlled, etc. But that is how fast it goes out. So, and I don't have any sense. If I find out answers on that, I will circle back. I've also asked, some of these measurements are taken off of what? As I said, 384 is the top of my dock. I have no idea what I'm measuring 384 off of. Fun facts. Anyhow, all right. So, the $1 million question, and I apologize it's taken me so long to get there, but it's really important that everybody understands how this all works. Lake Muskoka, we'll call it trends, 24 to 36 hours behind what is coming in on the North Branch. So the last two towns would be Port Sydney, Baysville. By the time it gets down to Bracebridge, that's 2 to 3 days later. And as a result, things rise until that water starts to stabilize. We can only push so much out. So basically, it's now Wednesday afternoon. That's sort of Saturday night, Sunday. The other contributing factor here is what comes from the sky. So obviously the snow and the ice has gone around here, which is great. That is not a risk this time like it was in 2019, especially for damage. But it's supposed to rain again Friday night. So, and into Saturday. So that will obviously contribute to the lake level and how fast they can get it out. Basically, the lake level is going to go up now through Sunday. I do not have a crystal ball. I cannot tell you how much we're going to flood by. My guess, 3 days, 2 inches max, probably-ish, is another 6 inches. That is not 2019. That is not 2013. The positive news is the ice is gone, so we do not have that damage going on. The west wind was kicked up a bit yesterday. It is going to turn to the east. It is only 20-ish kilometers an hour. That is not bad. But if you, first of all, if you have things on your docks and boathouse floors and you can still get to them, get them off now, save them. And I think the rest of us have learned to put it higher ground in the winter. Secondly, it's not a bad idea to raise your boathouse doors. Thirdly, would anybody who has their boats down on timbers, maybe their lifts and lowered them to timbers for the winter, I'd be more worried about the timbers doing damage if they start to float in the boathouses. So you're going to want to watch that. And other than that, if you're an islander, skip this weekend. There's no point, even if you're floater to floater, it's just not worth it. It's just silly. And let's all start cottaging hopefully next weekend when the water level's back.